Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first session of our webinar series. Our topic today is What are patents? A basic guide to patent law. Our speakers today are Ms. Mahua Roy Chaudhary and Mr. Samendra Patil. Ms. Mahua is the principal partner at Royce & Co. She has an LLM from the Franklin Pierce University of New Hampshire and is an advisor to the dean there. She is also a speaker at numerous forums and also conducts sessions at BIT, IIT, and other renowned institutes. Mr. Patel is an associate partner at Royce & Co. and holds an MIT degree from Franklin Pierce University of New Hampshire as well. Today, in the course of the section, we request you to raise your questions in the Q&A box and we will address them as we go along. Thank you for joining us. Over to the panelists.
Thank you, Manjure. Thank you for the introduction. I welcome all the participants out here. The objective of conducting this webinar for Students Fair, first of all, we wanted to address your being locked down in your home and utilize this time productively. And we started with patents because we have observed that there are not many institutes who teaches you patents per se, which is a very niche domain and a highly specialized field, and which in fact require practicing professionals to teach you. Teaching just academically is not enough for a patent. And there is a myth also. There is a myth among the students, especially for 5-year law students, that they think because they are not from a science background or a science graduate, they do not need to know the patent. I differ on that. I believe that even if you are a litigation lawyer, even if you are a corporate and commercial or become a transactional lawyer, or you are just a science graduate or engineering graduate and you want to be maybe an entrepreneur or run any business, maybe do your MBA later on and part of a management team, you need to know what is patent, what is its relevance in the business, why there are so many big wars are fought worldwide, multi-million dollar claims are being made, and what is the reason for the whole community of in favor of patents. Okay, so in order to break the myth, we are starting with our series 1. Yeah, Samendra, the next slide. Okay, so now intellectual property are sometimes taught as just one single subject in colleges. Yeah, as I said, that intellectual properties like patent and any other subject, even for copyright, trademark and all, they're all in subject in itself. What they share in common, why they are all called intellectual property, because of just one factor, that is they are all intangible assets as compared to a tangible asset like your property, like your house, building, which you can see the value. You go to a bank, you can mortgage, you can raise a loan. The same theory is for intangible assets as well. Only this intangible asset is that we cannot touch and feel it, but it is still there. It has a value. It has a parallel and equivalent value to a tangible asset as well. So the only common factor in all this intellectual property, which we will discuss in our next slide, is that they're all intangible. But the common thing ends over there. There is no other common thing to bind them together, and that is the only common thing. Now, why I'm giving a Coca-Cola here an example of that? The Coca-Cola brand, I have been told by my professors in US when I was studying over there, that the value of a Coca-Cola brand is such that assuming tomorrow all the physical assets of Coca-Cola, including its plants and manufacturing units, they all suddenly burn down. Okay, you can now take a more realistic approach, like in COVID, everything is shut down, right? But sometimes it may happen. If that eventually happens, the next day Coca-Cola can walk in a bank, mortgage their brand, this brand, and raise an equivalent amount to their all physical assets worldwide. That is the power of a single brand and a trademark. So that is as good as an asset Of course, it just doesn't become an asset just overnight. It's by consistent use over the period of time. Yeah, next slide, Samindra. Now, before we move on to patents, I would like you to understand that what all interrelations are there between all these IP which you may know. Patent, design, copyright, trademark, trade secrets. So the patent, as we know, it just protects the functioning, how of a product or a process. Whereas the design protects the aesthetic aspects of a product or article. So like I gave the example of your Coca-Cola bottle, the design of the bottle, the coloring of the bottle, okay, the shape and the color, that shape and color will be only relevant for a design perspective. But for allude will be. Design is very restricted. Samindra, go back to my slide. So design is restricted only to the, no, not the one, the listing one, listing all the IPs. Yeah. So patent is the functional aspect, that how this works, how, by what process the product is created. Whereas design doesn't get into that how. Design just is what sees your eye. That may be the shape, size, and the color, and the combination of the same. Now, copyright, as we all know, it protects the artistic, literary, dramatic, and musical work. But copyright also protects the software language. Then trademark, as I said, give an example of Coca-Cola, a big value of trademark, and trade secret. There is no specific statute or a act in India for trade secret. In US, there is a specific statute for trade secret. In India, how to protect trade secret is by contract, by non-disclosure agreements, and that any kind of agreement which binds the other party not to disclose. But there is one step to that as well, that you yourself should treat that trade secret as a secret. Like if you have a password, you cannot indiscriminately distribute that password to many people. And then you can say that, yes, this is my password. No, you cannot do that. Just like you have a lock and key, you cannot make several copies of that key and distribute it. You have to yourself treat it as a trade secret to prevail in any court of law, to show that, yes, I actually treated this as a trade secret. So marking your documents internally as confidential, marking your communications, your pitch documents as confidential, binding your employees that, yes, this is a trade secret and these are proprietary knowledge that you cannot share. So there are quite a lot of gates which you have to put, and how you work in an organization, that should also show that, yes, you actually valued your trade secret for others to value it. Yes, Samindra, you can go to the next slide. So these are the overlapping things. Now there are interrelations and there are certain choices that you can make. Like for a trade secret of a Coca-Cola content, the Coca-Cola drink, they had the option of patenting it as well. But they choose to keep it as a trade secret because patent has a shelf life, like a 20 years from the date of filing the patent application. After that, it comes in the public domain so that the public benefits from it. And that's why you are given a monopoly of 20 years. And that is like a motivation for you, that monopoly, so that you invest in research and development. But you also have the option to choose that Coca-Cola drink, the formulation of that, as a trade secret instead of a patent. So when you take it as a trade secret, like in Coca-Cola, only 2 employees of Coca-Cola till date knows what is the recipe of that drink. Not more than 2 employees. And they're one of the highest paid 2 employees of Coca-Cola. So you have an option between patent and trade secret with regard to such things. Now, you cannot choose a trade secret for, say, a machine which has a nuts and bolts. It can be easily decompiled and then assembled again. It's very difficult for you to then keep a trade secret. So that's why an option of a trade secret is mostly taken where there are formulations There are chemical compositions which cannot be reverse engineered so easily. Now, with regard to your design, there is an overlapping between design and patent as well. Like design, as I said, aesthetic. Maybe one component and embodiment, how the entire process work of that machine or the process, the production line, you can maybe keep it as a patent. You can may file a patent because there is some novelty in that. And there are other thresholds which are required to be qualified. But maybe the shape of the machine, the shape of the equipment, or maybe your, your AquaGuard or your vacuum cleaner, the shape of the vacuum cleaner, it can be registered as a design. Now, design has only 15 years life cycle as against patent. It is actually 10 years plus 5 years, 10 years first registration, and then 5 years you give it for, if you renew it further for 5 years. Yeah. So that is the interrelation between design and patent. I gave you an interrelation between a patent and trade secret as well. Now there is an interrelation between a copyright and patent as well, but that is only limited to a software language. So the language per se of the software can be treated as a literary work, whereas the entire innovation, the entire process, and the flowchart, of course, algorithm cannot be patented and cannot be accepted for a patent, but the entire flowchart of that entire programming, you can actually do patent as well. Yeah, so that is the overlap between the copyright and the patent and the trade secret, and the patent and the design. Now for a trademark, there is no such exclusive overlap, and these overlap are non-exclusive to each other except trade secret, where you have a choice whether to patent or whether to keep a trade secret. But for a copyright, you can choose both patent and a trade secret. Even for design, you can choose both patent and a trade secret. The patent will only protect the functional aspect, whereas the design will only protect the aesthetic aspect. With regard to trademark, it is very important that when you are launching a new product, that you create a new name for it that is distinct from your innovative name or your scientific name, so that the trademark creates its own parallel as an asset and doesn't become generic. Yes, over to Samindra.
Thank you, ma'am. So, adding further to ma'am's discussion, I thought we'll pick up something much more on a lighter mode. So, as you can see, it's a beer can for the company called Guinness. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of it, but I'm sure the people who love it definitely know. So, this specific Guinness beer can has got a patent, a design application, has a trade secret for it, and has a trademark on it, and even a copyright. Now let's separate them how they are separate. So what you can see is the logo and the name. Now these are the trademarks of Guinness. So they can be protected perpetually as long as you keep your filings validated. Secondly, it has got a patent. Now the patent in this specific can is for a ball which drops when you open the can, and it produces small bubbles, the fizz for the beer. So that's a patented process and an apparatus. Secondly, there is a design, how the can is manufactured. If you can see, the base is narrow. So that is how they have designed the can. So that has a design patent to it. Further, there's a trade secret. Now this trade secret happens to deal with how they choose the barley which makes the beer. So they have an internal process of selecting the best barley. This is where the trade secret comes in. Trade secret can be your list of raw materials that you use, or the process you choose them. It can be even the way they are combined, or even the way they are mixed. So anything that cannot be reversed engineered, or which the organization or the person doesn't want to disclose, can be kept as a trade secret. So this is on a much lighter note. This is how in a single product you have got patent, you have got a design patent, you have got a trademark, you've got a trade secret, and you've got a copyright. So all these intangible assets are interlinked and they can overlap on in a single product when you're trying to protect them. Moving on to the next slide, I'll hand it over to ma'am.
Yeah. So this is one of my, my favorite topic to the even to the management, and it is relevant to any management of any company. Many of you may ask, even in this pandemic time, that there are certain medicines, which have patents. Then why we should go for patents, which is not serving the community at large? I ask the question: why should a company invest in research and development where the company knows that it may get through or it may not even get through? Like, there are many companies now working to get a crack for this COVID virus. They're spending money and resources without even knowing then they will be successful or not. So their motivation to work for something which is unknown to them at this point of time and to spend money on that is the only motivation that for 20 years they will get a monopoly in the market. So this is one thing, that monopoly starts from the date of filing the patent application, because in patent the application gets published after a certain point of time in by the patent office, so that anybody who has any objection can come forward and raise an objection to it even before the patent gets examined. That is one objective. The second objective, it gives you a competitive edge over the others. That competitive edge can be even for a computer company also. That today, if I am launching a version 1 and my competitor is at version 3, how do I achieve the version 4? Will I be able to beat that competitor? So there are a lot of competitive decisions are being made. That's why whenever a patent is taken, people try to build a fort around that patent. Means they try to build a maybe of a similar patent. Like a Tata Nano car, it has 100 patents in just one Nano car. Because even if one competitor infringe one patent, he will not be able to infringe all the patents and come forward. Even if he infringe, then your claim against him doubles up. So there are a lot of strategic decisions are being made, how we build an entire family and build an entire fortress of patents. It promotes research and development, as I indicated, because whatever we innovate, it may not be now in today's time. The domain of invention has become very congested. So what you do, where you find that you have created a really star and really a diamond which requires it, it's very difficult to find that space. So then there are ways to do it, that there are improvements. What is the existing product? Maybe you find an improvement in that. Maybe you found a way that it increases the efficiency of that whole process line. Maybe it just saves time. Even if it saves time, it means it saves the production. And there is some cost relevance to that. If my production time today reduces because of that small innovation and improvement of mine, there is a cost related to that as well, which gets saved eventually. So even those things qualify as a patent. It supports business goals by increasing revenue, because as you have a monopoly, of course, it gives you a market edge. Attracts capital investment. Now there are many companies being set up which started with just one patent applications, and after filing that application they could pitch to the investors to bring in investment in that. So even one innovation can build a big company. We have seen in all these app companies, Ola, Uber, what the innovation they have. They have just that app. That app was the innovation which took them to several countries without investing anything further or any physical assets. They do not even buy and own the cars themselves. They just own the app. That was their innovation. Increase valuation of business. Tomorrow, if you want to sell off one of the business of yours, the valuation of the business is also considered by the valuation of your IP portfolio. And if it's an innovative company, if it's a tech-oriented company, the chunk of the valuation will come from the patent. So the entire value of the company, while you are selling it off, or you are bringing in investment, or you are going to a bank for your loan, will depend on also on your basket of IP and including your patent. Yes, Samendra, go on.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So I'll move to the next slide. Now we'll be discussing on, so we have realized what are the different types of IPs that are there, why patent is necessary, or how patent benefits a specific organization or the individuals or the startups. Now the important and the basic question is, what are patents? To elaborate on this, we'll say that a patent is a techno-legal document which is drafted and filed with the patent office. The reason why it's called a techno-legal document is because we are trying to protect or patent a technical aspect of an invention which has got scientific background to it. That's why they need a technical language to cover the scope. And the reason why we're calling it a legal, why the legal aspect comes into it, is because the way the words are used have a specific interpretation in the legal language. As you're well aware that when you're drafting contracts or any other document for that matter in the legal field, you have to be very specific with the words that are used in order to communicate effectively, because each word has its own impact in understanding and interpretation of that document, of that specific legal document. Similar is the case with the patent. So though it's a technical document, you're trying to protect a process or a product which is technical in nature, but there are legal aspects associated with it and the interpretation of it. Now, why the patents? Again, what are the patents? To answer that, another question is that they are specifically to protect the functional aspect of any technical solution. What is the functional aspect? So whenever you answer to the question how, when you're finding a solution, that's where the invention lies. Let's say there's a problem of, as we are discussing, I think the major issue today is the COVID-19. So the major problem is COVID-19. That's the problem statement. The solution is to come up with a vaccine. The question is how to come up with a vaccine. So that's where you come, that's how you drill down. So the vaccine will require to have certain things. The vaccine will have a composition. This is the composition. So vaccine will be effective if you use this. So those specific compositions, when you reach down to drill down to the very basic and fundamentals, is when you answer the question how, and that is what is protected under the patent document. Now patents, as I was saying, can be for product. Under product, you have what? System, apparatus, chemical compound, chemical compositions. So all these will form the product's patent. These are the basic two categorizations of patent. That's product or a process. In the process, what we look at it, its method of doing it. So for example, if you are manufacturing a chemical compound, now how this chemical compound is manufactured can be patented. That will be a process patent. The chemical compound can be a product patent. So you can have two different distinct patents, one for the product, one for the process, or you can have them in a combination also. This is how the patents are. I will just go through an example document of the patent in my next slide. I'll show you. So examples of patent. So now what you see is this is a chemical structure of a promising drug that Gilead holds is a possible solution for the COVID-19. It's a treatment solution. Now this is the structure of the chemical. Now this specific structure has been protected by the patent, which is held by Gilead. Now even the process for this can be protected. Another example of a product is the shoes of Michael Jackson. So we all know that Michael Jackson used to do this gravity-defying stunt, where he used to incline to a more than 45 degrees of angle. Now that was possible because of the shoes that he had himself designed or invented. That is the specific product that you can see. The inventor in this case was Michael Jackson, of course, and he was the owner also of this. Here we'll see how a techno-legal document appears. So patent application, as I told you, is drafted and then it is filed with the respective patent offices. So a document, we have taken a sample of the Google glasses. I'm sure most of you are aware that they were quite the sensation when they had launched, where you could get information directly on your Google Glasses by the projection, by the HUD projection. So this is how the patent was drafted. So when you can see, it has got specific technical language in it. So it has got different sections. It has got the title. It has got the classification codes. It has got references. It has got abstract. It has got technical drawings. If you look at it, then this is where the entire description of the document goes. Now this is where the maximum technical information goes, along with the legal language. Now when I said technical and the legal language, for an example, I would say that, let's say if we're describing the process that the glasses has a camera mounted on it. Now, in a technical term, we would simply say that the camera is mounted on the glass. But when we're trying to interpret it, it would mean that there is only one camera on the glass, whereas there's a possibility of having multiple cameras. To cover this different scope in way of a legal aspect, that's where we say there is at least one camera. Therefore, by expanding the scope of this information, this is where the legal interpretation for the technical document, for the technical information becomes necessary. I hope that cleared why a techno-legal document is there. Now, the most fundamental part of patent is that it should satisfy 4 criteria. First thing is, it should be a patent eligible subject matter. That is, it should be technical in nature. Second, it should be novel. It should be non-obvious or inventive. And fourth, it should be useful. Now, useful in terms of the industry utilization. So most of the products that you patent, usually the least threshold is the usefulness, because when we try to patent a specific product or a process, it usually has a commercial value. That's the reason why we go ahead and try to patent it. We'll talk about the most basic and the most fundamental criteria that needs to be met by any invention or any process that you want to patent. Is the subject matter patent eligible? Now, what do you mean by patent matter? Is the patent matter subject eligible? So patents are usually granted for the technical information. Okay. So in India, Section 3 defines what under the Indian Patent Act of 1970, Section 3 defines what are not patent eligible subject matter. So, for example, a mathematical process is not a patentable subject matter. Similarly, occurrence of discovery of natural elements. So, for example, if you have found a new element that exists in the nature, it is not a patent eligible subject matter. However, if you create a new element by way of synthesis, that is a patent eligible subject matter, and the process to create it is a patentable subject matter. So when we say that scientists have made new elements and added to the periodic table, so certain elements of these are man-made, which can be patent eligible, and certain are appearing in the nature as it is, they are not patent eligible. Similarly, in US, US says that everything under the sun is patentable, but then over the period they have gone through their jurisprudence and their discussions and their guidelines, and they have come to a so-called two-pronged test to decide whether a specific subject matter is patent eligible or not. Now, usually these lines between patent eligible subject matter and non-patent eligible subject matter is very gray. Okay, for example, the Indian Patent Act says that software patents per se are not patent eligible subject matter. However, if you're using a software to, let's say, define a new code in terms of security code, or let's say you are trying to do image processing, the software doing such things are patent eligible. Therefore, that's the reason I said that these lines are a little gray in terms of what becomes a patent eligible subject matter and what is not a patent eligible subject matter. There's a fine line which we need to always see. We need to drill down to the basic question: how have we achieved a specific product or the process, and whether that how is technical in nature will determine whether it is a patent eligible subject matter or not. The other important aspects of patentability are the new, what we call as, is that they should have novelty, they should have inventive step, they should have utility. Now, what do you mean by novelty? Novelty means it should be new. It should not. So, what new means is that if there is a problem statement that is there, no one has proposed the same solution. Okay. A lot of problem statements are similar. Example, we've always had the problem statement of moving from point 1 to point 2. So the solutions are provided in terms of vehicles, trains, flights. These are what we called as different modes. Okay, so these all are new modes when they were introduced. However, the problem statement was only single. How do we commute? How do we commute from one point to another point? Then is the inventive step. Now, what do you mean by inventive step? Inventive step is more of a definition that is used in India and other jurisdictions like Germany and Europe. What it means is that the solution that you're proposing for a specific problem has a technical advancement over it. Okay, that's one aspect. Secondly, it should have economical significance. So an inventive step can have a technical advance or economic significance, or it can have both. That is what the basic criteria for inventive step is. Now, what do you mean by technical advance? By technical advance, we mean that that when someone had proposed a solution to the problem, he was missing a small delta, which did not resolve the problem completely. For example, the vehicles were proposed for commuting from point A to point B for a very long time. However, the efficiency of the vehicles were not great. It started with 20%, 30%. Now we have efficiency of about 40-45%. So this is where the delta has kept on increasing. So this is why there are still patents on internal combustion engine, whereas it was discovered in 1800s by Carl Benz. This is the reason why the entire system still has patent. Though the problem solution statement has existed for long, the solution that is provided is new and has an inventive delta advantage over it. Utility, as I told you, is a very basic criteria and is usually fulfilled by all the innovations that we file applications for. That is, it should have a commercial value. We should be able to manufacture it using the industry processes, available industry processes. So that is the reason utility is one of the criteria. And review back to what we have said. So patentability has 4 key pillars. That it should be a patent eligible subject matter. It should be novel, that it should be new. It should have an inventive step, that is, it should be non-obvious, that is, it should have either a technical advancement or economical significance or either both. And the 4th point is that it should have a usefulness. Now we'll move on to understand this with respect to an example. Now, as you can see that these are examples of a paperclip. What you see on the leftmost is the first patent for a paperclip. Now this paperclip, as you can see, the problem statement here, if we have to define, is how can we bind a bunch of papers together without need for stapling them, or temporary binding a bunch of papers. The solution proposed first was the first paperclip. Now this paperclip, as you can see, has 2 very sharp edges. So when introduced, this was a new concept. Okay. The second patent by John Weller, shows how he has rounded the edges. So here he has solved the same problem with more technical advancement. That is, because of the sharp edges, usually paper used to tear up or people used to be hurt with those sharp edges. So he has made those edges round. Now the papers don't tear up, nor do they hurt while using them. That's why this specific paperclip got a patent on the improved design. That is how the second patent came into being. Now, if you look at the third configuration, it again has rounded edges. It doesn't have any sharp edges. However, the only changes in the shape. This is more of a square, and that has got a little bit of a circular dome. However, this specific product did not get a patent. The reason being, both the problem statement was solved in the similar fashion by the third clip. Therefore, they only trademarked the specific product and they sold the product under that trademark. which of course became a successful. But here's an interesting thing. Though the product did not get a patent, however, they were smart enough to make a patent for the machine. So, though this clip was not patented, the machine that manufactured this clip was patented. So that is how they took the advantage of manufacturing this clip using that specific machine. So this is where the commercialization of that machine comes into picture. So this is where you have to think beyond the tradition that, what if my product is not patented? So what the product, the process. So we have to understand what all new aspects are going into it and how we are achieving each and every factor that is there. Now we'll take each section in detail here. Like we'll start with the novelty. The very basic criteria for any patentable subject matter is that it should be new. It should propose a solution that has not been proposed by anyone before for the same problem statement. According to the Indian Patent Act, Section 21J defines invention, that is new, as something that is not anticipated by any publication or any disclosure anywhere in the world. Now, what does this mean? Disclosure is not anticipated by a publication in any document or used in any country elsewhere. So what happens is usually disclosures are in form of products in terms of technical documents. Most of us write articles, so those can act as documents, disclosure documents. At times we simply sell the product into the market to understand the market, whether this specific product will be successful. But what we don't realize is that once this product hits the market, it is already into the public domain now. Public is aware of such product being existing or such solution being existent in the public domain. Now the word anticipated is more critical here. Novelty, as I said, is something new, and to destroy something new, it needs to be anticipated. That is, it should be disclosed in its entirety. Section 29 to Section 30 specifically of the Indian Patent Act describe how a particular disclosure, that is a written disclosure, is acting as an anticipation for the novelty destruction of a process or a method, a product or a process. Similarly, what contributes to a understanding of a sale of a product, which will then render it as anticipated for the patentability. The other most important aspect for new and novelty, which has more we can say is the contribution of the Indian intellectual property team to the world, is a traditional knowledge. So we are all aware of the famous cases for Neem and Haldi, where Dr. Mashelkar had represented India at international forums, arguing that how the traditional knowledge of Neem as an antibiotic or Haldi as an antibiotic and Neem as an antioxidant have been known in India and have been used as house remedies for ages. So this becomes part of your traditional knowledge. So this disclosure may not be in a very particular or in a very specific format, because see, certain things, they have come over the years and they have come up and they have come over the generations and have to be used. Therefore, they have they have acted as a part of a traditional knowledge. So when a specific thing is a part of traditional knowledge, it's not new, it becomes anticipated by way of traditional knowledge and can render it non-patentable. Another example, one great example of this is while Dr. Mashelkar was defending the Haldi patent. So what he relied was on a simple pamphlet distributed by a roadside vendor in Pune, who used to sell the Haldi and its benefit and how it acts. This was a simple document that he relied on, saying that this is how the traditional knowledge was passed on. This is a public disclosure because he was distributing it to everyone on the street. So that's where the public knowledge is, and that is how this document worked as an novelty destroying document for Haldi. We'll talk about another example. Something that's more fun and more relatable is the iPhone. Now we all know, and now it's very much common, is the slide to unlock option. But when it was introduced, it was first introduced by iPhone. In fact, they have a patent on slide to unlock patent, for which they have won damages from Samsung to a tune of $120 million. So you can see a simple functionality that is just slide to unlock has generated huge amount of revenues for them. So on the screen you can see the images of the actual iPhone, the slide to unlock, and on the left side of it you can see the technical drawing that was submitted as a part of the patent document. Now here's the question. I have shown you Maruti van. Now Maruti van was way before iPhone came into, and we also use the same slide to unlock. We used to press the button and we used to just slide the door to unlock the vehicle. Now isn't it the same as providing the solution, sliding to unlock, whether it's a vehicle or whether it's a phone? The question here comes is, the anticipatory document should be from the same domain. The domain that describes iPhone is not the same as the domain that describes an automobile. They come from two different categories of domain or arts, what we called as in the patent field. They are not analogous. So for a person who's trying to solve a problem of unlocking a mobile phone, is never going to look for an automobile, how it unlocks itself. Therefore, it cannot act as a novelty destroying document. Okay. Whether it can act as an obvious document is a discussion for another matter altogether. But as for novelty, it cannot destroy the novelty, the feature of the touched, slide to unlock. Now we'll talk about the. I told you is a more common term used by in the Indian jurisdiction, in Germany, in Europe. So for an inventive step, there are two aspects. First thing is that it should have a technical advancement, or it should have economical significance. The reason here and or is important is because the Indian jurisdiction interprets it that you should have either of them or both of them. Even if you have just economical significance for your product, it will still be considered to have an inventive step, which is not the case in terms in US, where non-obviousness is much more precise when it comes to technical advancement. Now again, inventive step is defined under the section 21JA of the Indian Patent Act, and I've already told you it means that it should have what we call as inventive step, it should have a technical advancement, and it should have an economical significance. We'll illustrate this with we'll go with more detail. Now, what do you mean by technical advance is should be defined by the person who is ordinary skilled in the art. So, for example, let's say if I'm dealing with specific, if I'm an engineer, then I become a person ordinary skilled in the art to understand when I'm talking about a specific machine. But let's say if I'm a physics graduate, for me, understanding a mechanical machine becomes a difficult. Therefore, I'm not a person ordinary skill in the art. Similarly, if I'm from the pharmaceutical background and let's say there's someone from mechanical background, for him to understand the composition, how a specific composition has a higher efficacy or a lower efficacy, and how the rotation of a specific composition or the compound changes its property, will be difficult for a mechanical person to understand than the person who is aware of the chemical or the chemistry about it. That's why it's very essential that that a person who's defining the technical advancement or decides whether it's obvious or non-obvious should be a person ordinary skill in the art. Other criteria that require that can satisfy the condition for non-obviousness is the commercial success. So as I told you, is economical significance. So when we can show that it has tremendous edge on its competition because of this single functionality, it adds to the economical significance. The second aspect is the wrong felt unsolved needs. Now what does this mean? This means that there was a specific problem has existed for a longer time and no person has come up with a better solution until now. This is where the delta, the technical advancement, comes into the picture. This is where the long felt unsolved needs is met. The third aspect is failures of others. So let's say everyone is working on this vaccine. and people are for the COVID-19, and people have tried the combination of 1 2 3 component 1 2 3. Now let's say 10 people have tried this composition 1 2 and 3, and they have not been able to successfully develop the vaccine. However, the 11th person uses the same combination of 1 2 and 3 in a specific way that he's able to develop this vaccine. This is where the non-obviousness can be overcome, because where others have failed, he has successfully come up with a solution, include using the same exact composition. This will illustrate in the example. So Crocs, I'm sure most of us are aware of Crocs, the widely famous footwears that we are wearing these days, and specifically in monsoons, I'm sure everyone loves to wear them. So Crocs, as you know, are made from a material of foam. They are not your typical material of your leather or your resin or any other material that is used. They are specifically made from foam. So these specific Crocs, they have a patent application for it, which I have illustrated here. They also own a design patent, which has been illustrated here, and the details of it has been given here. So when they had filed this patent, they were challenged by the International Trade Commission that their patent which they had filed was obvious, and that they should have not been granted this patent. The reason International Trade Commission said that it was obvious is because foam was known, footwear was known, they have simply made footwears from a foam. Here Crocs argued that if foam and footwears have been known for so long, why were they ever combined? And when they backtracked their steps, they realized that every single person who had talked about foam had said that why it fails as a footwear material is for the reason being the moment you rivet or you join them, they start tearing. This was the problem which Crocs had overcome with their product. This reasoning helped them overcome their obviousness and inventive step argument. So this is how their patent was granted. We'll just go back and review a few slides again. So we started with novelty. We'll just go through the example. So as we said, novelty should be new. It should be a solution that has never been proposed for a specific problem statement. It can be a product, it can be a process, it can be a product process, it can be chemical composition, it can be a chemical compound. These can be patentable. Inventive step. So inventive step, when we say, is that when we're talking about inventive step, so for a person who is ordinary skill in the art, so if a solution was proposed by an inventor, a person ordinary skill in the art, in that specific art, would be the right person to judge if the delta or the small technical advancement that he has made was not obvious to any other person who was in the art. Okay, we'll move to the next slide. So we'll just briefly cover the types of patent. We just want to make sure that you understand the patent, the fundamentals of patent completely. So in India, we have something called the utility patent. US, Europe, in fact, all the jurisdictions usually give utility patents. What does utility patent means? Utility patent is a patent that captures the functional aspect, and it should suffice all the 4 criteria. That is, it should be inventive step, it should have an inventive step, and it should be useful. Whereas the second, that is a utility model or petty patents, these are granted by few of the countries like Germany, Australia. Now these require to meet only 3 criteria. That is, it should be patent eligible subject matter, it should have novelty, and it should have usefulness. The important criteria that they are missing is the inventive step or non-obviousness. When you're filing for a utility patent or a petty patent, you don't need to show non-obviousness or inventive step. However, India does not give such patents or enter in such patent. The third type of patent is a design patent that we've already discussed. So as I've already mentioned, there is a design patent by Crocs, or for simply, you've got so many design patents in terms of the vehicle, in terms of automobiles, or in terms of mobile. So the iPhone has a design patent for the shape and how aesthetically it looks. So design patents focus only on the aesthetic appearance of a specific product. However, the basic criteria still lies the same, that the aesthetic, when they are aesthetically observed, they should be new. They should be distinguishable from the existing art. For the next slide, I'll hand you over to ma'am.
Thank you, Samendra. Thank you for a very elaborate and detailed presentation. I know sometimes it's difficult for professionals to come down to a student level and make them understand and decipher a dry subject to an interesting subject. Yes, patent can be dry for some time when you are working for long hours on a technology. So we finish our the series 1, that is the basic of patent law. We would like to take this initiative forward and keep you tuned in, because we would like you to go forward. The basic doesn't end here. Those were the preliminary things, but for you to make a decision, whether it is for a management decision or even for a litigation, you need a little bit more than that. So our next course will be on substantive patent law and the cases. That is, we will be discussing certain sections, the relevant, most important relevant sections, the cases, the most reputed landmark cases, even vis-a-vis India as well. And then the third series will be the basic rules of drafting of a patent. So thank you all for joining us, and we hope that you join us in our level 2 and level 3 as well. There is a question, I think, open. Many phones have copied iPhone. Is there any liability on them? Okay, Samendra.
Yeah.
Can you answer this live? Many phones have copied iPhone. Is
Yes.
there any liability on them? This is an interesting thing which I think we cannot just summarily say it on a chat. Take it up and answer it.
Yeah. So again, I'll go back to the example of iPhone. So when iPhone sued Samsung, apart from its swipe to unlock option, it had even sued for the design patents that iPhone had, which iPhone had owned. So if you remember the earlier Samsung phones, they were again rounded shape, the very old, very first. So Samsung had to actually stop manufacturing those phones because of the shape, because the shape was similar to the iPhone. So they had to actually stop manufacturing these phones. So there is a liability when the infringement proceeding begins, and the damages in case where Samsung and Apple, they had a very long battle. In fact, Apple won about $1 billion from Samsung in damages for all the various patents that they had filed under. The $120 million that we showed in the presentation was an example of only for slide to unlock and the contact management. However, for designs and the other aspects, the total damages were about $1 billion. So yes, as I said, there is a liability, and in fact, Samsung, the Apple and Samsung case proves it. Can they compromise through agreement between themselves by paying off? Of course. So yes, there's always a licensing agreement is always there. See, there's always this cross licensing is there. So at times, what happens between the companies is that there are certain, specifically in the mobile industry, what happens is cross licensing happens a lot of time. So what happens is there are certain patents owned by certain other companies, so they can always cross license to each other in way that they will be able to explore and commercialize them beneficially. So that is part of your licensing agreement. That's part of your settlement. How do you want to settle?
There can be cross license as well. Sometimes patent is, as I said, when you build a patent, you build it as a fort, and you build it for a competitive edge. Now that competitive edge comes in many ways. That competitive edge comes in this way as well. You want something from your competitor, and your competitor wants something from you. So you should have always in your basket something to offer to mediate in all this kind of dispute. So you can have a cross licensing, that I will allow you to use this feature of mine and you allow me to use the other feature of yours. So you should have a patent, a kitty, or new technology innovation in your basket to begin with, to have such a dialogue and interaction. Indian. Suppose a product X is patented in India, but say not in China. So can an Indian manufacturer make X in India and market it in China? No. Uh, as I indicated, I have responded to it as well in the chat question answer box. IP is territorial in nature. That is country specific. So the IP you have in India, you can enforce your IP against third party in India only. Now, with regard to patent and design, these are mandatorily to be registered. So, and there are certain IP like copyright and all this there are treaties for it. So they reciprocate and they, honor each other's copyright. But with regard to patent, because it is mandatory registered and because IP is territorial, you should have filed a patent in China to enforce against third party. Now the question is here, if you have a patent in India, whether you can sell it, yes, you can manufacture in India, whether you can sell it in China, no, you cannot sell it in China because there is a pre-existing patent in China by a Chinese person. So before you enter China, you have to conduct a freedom to operate analysis to see whether you can function in China and sell your products in China. So as a company, whichever market, foreign market you are entering, before you enter, you have to conduct a due diligence, that is a freedom to operate, and conduct a search that there are no such patent pending in that, or patent application, a patent granted in that country. So I think we can finish today, Samendra. We have
Yes,
responded to all questions. Thank you for making this session interesting and asking interesting questions. We look forward to your participation in our next series. Thank you. Have a good night.